It's 4 o'clock on a Tuesday, and you know what that means, don't you? It's time for another exciting episode of Taxi's Quarantini Happy Hour. Woohoo! And here we go. Today we are going to talk about mixing with headphones. Should you or shouldn't you? Excited to see you guys. Let's see who is in that chat room. We've got Mark Fell, Ewart Williams, Dan Weber, Andre Stepanian, Bob Gunnerfeld, Terrell Beckless, Ian Shortall, Debbie Ward, Ewart Williams, I think I said that already, Riney Bear, let's see, Glenn Letts, Dean Turner, Andre Stepanian, Terrell Beckless, Keith Sumner, Ilraso Emil, Michael Bruce Miller, Jesse J. Peck, Dan Weber, Martin Gravel. Hello, everybody. Well, today's going to be an exciting show. I'm probably going to prison right after this show because I am going to play you some individual tracks from that Eagles 16-track master that I got many years ago. For those of you who may watch the show later and who aren't regulars to the Quarantini Happy Hour, many years ago, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago, something like that, my assistant called me up while I was out at a meeting and he said, "Hey, I just saw a 16-track Eagles master of the song Take It Easy. Do you other guys have sound?" I see that Glenn Lett says he has no sound. And I was just, apparently, yeah, because you guys are hearing me. Okay. Anyway, so I told my assistant, I said, wow, okay, I'll pay up to $500 for that. It was in an auction on eBay. He ended up getting it for $70, and I thought for sure it would never show up, or it would show up as a blank reel of 2-inch. Lo and behold, the thing showed up a few weeks later, and it has 10 tracks, I believe, recorded on it. It's got 2 bass parts. It's got drums left, drums right. Acoustic guitar left, acoustic guitar right, lead vocal, lead guitar, background vocals left, background vocals right, and I think that's all that's on there. It doesn't have the banjo, and it doesn't have the jangly electric guitar that plays along at some points on the release version. This is not the release version. I thought it was when I initially got it. I had it bounced to digital. I had it baked and then bounced. And I've had this digital file for many years. And so as many of you regulars know, that I've been mixing it lately. And so today I want to talk about mixing on headphones first, and then I'm going to play you some individual tracks from this thing. Hear the music Michael mix saying, no, you're not going to hear my mix. You're not going to hear the mix. I'm not even sure at any point that I'll play this whole thing. I've got the faders. I'm playing it off of my other laptop, my older laptop in GarageBand, which is where I put it first. And I've set most of the faders to 0, if you call those faders on GarageBand, to 0. And I pan the background vocals far left and far right, and the drums far left and far right, and the acoustic guitars far left and far right, because I want to show you some interesting stuff that not that unusual for an old fart like me who worked in studios. Let's see, this was done, I believe, in 1971 at Olympic Studios in London. I could be wrong if somebody wants to Google it. I think that they did it on a Trident A-range console. Glenn Johns, Glyn Johns, Johns, was the engineer-producer on it, famous for Led Zeppelin and a whole bunch of other great acts. He and the Eagles did not get along all that well. Pat wore any fear of copyright strike by playing these tracks. That's why I said I may be going to prison afterwards. Hopefully all they do is just mute the show for the archive later. I don't know. But you know what? This version is probably not in anybody's algorithm because I own the 16-track master. So we'll see. Who knows? Yeah, if you've got headphones, you might want to put them on. So anyway, Liz will not monetize. Okay, so hopefully the Eagles will make a few bucks on this. I won't even attempt to. This is all for education. But anyway, let's talk about mixing on headphones. So, as you all know, I got Logic back in October. Didn't really use it for more than an hour, I guess, up until recently, like in the last month, I would say. And so I've been having a blast playing with Logic and downloading some plugins and using those. Some that I like a lot, some that are like meh, but most of them are pretty good. The ones that actually come in Logic, I've found for the most part are like pretty good to really good. Couple of stinkers, but nothing horrible. Yeah, fair use doesn't matter. You know what? You have to go to court to prove fair use. You can't just say, oh, it was fair use. It's for educational purposes. YouTube doesn't care about that. It's the people who own the intellectual property, and you have to go to court to prove fair use. And I can tell you from having been through lawsuits, going to court is not cheap, and it ain't fun. If I own the master, could I release it hypothetically? Who knows? I don't even want to think about that because I never will. Anyway, hey, Cass. Cass, by the way, had more baby goats while we were doing yesterday's show. Let me show you the latest in Cass's family. Where to go? Where to go? Oh, come on. I had them before. Don't know where the hell they went. There we go. Another baby goat from Papa Cass, born just yesterday. Congratulations, Cass. Proud papa that you are. So, anyway, I was mixing originally on my Bose noise canceling headphones. Those were the only headphones I had around the house. Then I brought a pair of the Taxi Screener headphones home, which are Audio Technica M20 whatever HPs, something like that. They make a 10, a 20, I think a 30, a 50. So when I mix stuff on the Bose headphones and then listened back to it in the Taxi Screener headphones, it sounded pretty horrible. So then I said, you know what? I'm going to research about people that actually do mix on headphones. What do they use? And on almost every top 10 list of headphones you should mix on list that I found, the Audio Technica, I forget what the actual number is, but they're 50s, AT 50 something or other. So I decided I'm going to buy a pair of those. Worst could happen is they sound like crap and I'll send them back. So I got the wireless version because I will admit that I stood up about a month or so ago with a pair of earbuds and walked away to go grab dinner and rip the wires. Not just rip the earbuds out, but actually rip the wires out of one of the buds. 50 MXH. There you go. So, yeah, they've gotten pretty good reviews from people. Well, then, as I've told you recently, I found out that Waves already had a control room simulation plugin that you could download or buy. Then they came out with one that is supposedly an exact replication of Abbey Road's control room. And what they do to replicate that is they bring in a device that blasts white noise and pink noise, different combinations of that in different ways for different applications. But what they do is they set up microphones that are calibrated microphones in the control room, and they measure the frequency spectrum. And when you set up a control room, when you build a brand new control room and you're working with an acoustician and the guys who are building the control room, you set these things up. You set up a stereo pair and you send out this combination. I think first you start with pink noise. I've been in the room when this is done, and believe me, it hurts your ears. So don't do what I did. Anyway, you listen, the microphones hear it and they analyze it, and then you adjust graphic equalizers for all the different bandwidths until you get it flat across the entire EQ spectrum. So when they want to measure a room to build a plugin like that, they do time delay spectrometry? Time TDS. There you go, TDS. There's an acronym for everything. And they measure the amount of time that the reflections last, because all rooms have surfaces that reflect audio. It's one of the laws of physics. Just like surfaces reflect light, they reflect invisible audio waves, sound waves that you can't hear. So even things like the recording console, if you've got 12 to 15 feet of Neve or SSL sitting in front of you, well, the sound is coming from either big speakers in the control room or smaller speakers that are near-field monitors mounted on the meter bridge. But nonetheless, some of that sound is bouncing off the console, coming up at you just as light would. It's also bouncing off the ceiling, it's bouncing off the floor, it's bouncing off the walls. And that's why they build control rooms the way they do, with sloped ceilings and walls that are kind of canted in so that they're not parallel. And you get this, with a parallel wall, the sound bounces like that and creates a slap. So they cant them in so that it causes it to bounce around in an irregular pattern instead of a regular pattern. So that's what they do, I'm sure, when they build these plugins. So they just came out with a new one a week or so ago, Waves did, called Waves NX Ocean Way Nashville. So it just so happens that probably like around 2006, I guess, I was in Nashville, and a friend of mine, I honestly can't remember if it was a Faith Hill mix or a Tim McGraw mix, or one or the other. I actually think it might have been Tim McGraw, I think. Anyway, I knew the guys who worked at the publishing company or management company that worked with Tim, and they said, hey, why don't you come over to the studio this afternoon? We're going to be there because they're mixing a song. So I went, sure, what the hell? The studio is gorgeous. It's built in an old church, and the control room is gorgeous. It's world-class, state-of-the-art, no exaggeration. And so that's what Waves used. They sampled that room with TDS, and they came out with this new thing. So what you do is you put it on your mix bus, on the output, after everything else. Because what it does is it simulates the speakers, the monitors in the room. And they do have big monitors, which are probably like dual 15 woofers with a mid-range and a tweeter. And then I don't even know what kind of monitors that they had over the meter bridge. They weren't NS10s. And they design it around the sound coming out of those two monitors. So I got it the other day. I downloaded it. I got my shiny new headphones, I put them on, and I turned on the app, and I went, wow, that's really impressive. I mean, if there's one thing I know, it's what a control room sounds like. Now, does a control room sound as good as it will mixing on headphones? No. Headphones are right here on your ears, so whatever comes out of those drivers in the headphones is a half an inch away from your eardrum, or maybe an inch away from your eardrum. So you get incredible sound because there's none of that natural harmonic distortion or any of the reflections colliding against each other. You get no sound of a room. But you can't really mix like that because that's not how people are going to listen in the real world. Although nowadays people in the real world probably mostly listen on those guys. See how anal I am? I actually Velcro my earbuds. My office, right? It looks like a spaghetti factory of cables. Anyway, so I'm very impressed when you put your headphones on and you turn your head, as all engineers do. Anybody who's worked in a, well, I guess not even a real control room. I'm sure you do this at home as well. If you've got something panned to the left, you're prone to turn your head. If you bring it up in solo, you probably turn your head a little bit to favor the ear that's on the side that you're working. Same thing would be on the right. Well, when you do that using that plug-in with headphones on, you first of all, you see a little graphic of your head, and it perfectly mimics your head movement. And I remember I used to do this a lot when I mixed. I would put bury my face in my hands, put my head down, and then I realized that it changes the audio because you're getting a lot of the reflection off the console when you're doing this. So I tried that with the headphones on, and I'll be damned, it exactly simulated that sound. But control rooms do not sound as good as having headphones on right there against your ears. So, I'm sorry, I'm catching up on the, I want to see what you guys are saying there. So, anyway, so I'm pretty impressed. This plugin, I think I paid $30 or $35 for it. It was on sale because everything's on sale pretty much all the time at Waves. And they did a really good job on it. They worked hand in hand with Alan Sides, who is a legendary audio engineer, room designer, studio owner. He owns Ocean Way in LA and I think a couple other studios. He owns the Ocean Way in Nashville. So he's a real audio guy, and he worked hand in hand with them. And this plugin is very impressive. So I did a mix of Take It Easy, which you're going to hear in a little bit here. And I did one version that was totally using the plug-in and the headphones. And then I listened back to it and then I A-B'd it without the plug-in being turned on. And I went, wow, it doesn't sound anything like it did in the control room, but it sounds pretty darn good. So, yay, impressive. So I happened to go to the office yesterday, the taxi office, and I've got my NS10s there. Now, they're not in an ideal situation. The back of the NS10s is about 3 inches away from a plate glass window with metal blinds over it. They're probably about 7 feet apart. I normally would lay them on their sides with the tweeters on the outside and the woofers in the middle. The theory there is that you get more of a stereo spread, a more accurate stereo spread by having the tweets on the outside, the woofers in the middle, because we all tend to put things that are bass heavy down the middle and we don't pan them left or right because that would skew your whole mix to one side or the other like that. That's the international hand signal for skewing to one side or the other. So I listened to the mix and I was trying to not imitate the mix. I actually listened for a reference to the real mix, the radio mix of the Take It Easy version that made it to the record and radio. And then I listened to my mix. And my mix, which I was trying once again to do what I call the Bill Szymczyk treatment of the Eagles, which is kind of a slicker, silkier, more homogenized, lots of compression that you don't really hear, but it's there, kind of mix. And I felt fairly satisfied. It wasn't finalized. I didn't do any automation or make any moves, but just wanted to hear what the balance sounded like. And admittedly, when I turn around and face my NS10s, because they're behind me in the office, because I've used them in the past for taxi TV, I can't really put them on my desk blowing at me, because then when people come into the office to meet with me, I'd have to be looking over speakers all the time. So they are not in a control room-like situation at all. But I listened to the mix first by just simply turning around, and I was probably 3 feet, 2.5 feet back from where they are, and they're like 7 feet apart. So not a perfect equilateral triangle, which is the ideal situation for setting up monitors for mixing. So then I went on the other side of my desk, and you should know that my desk is an old Spanish pine dining room table that's probably about 8 or 9 feet long and about 3.5 feet deep. So I went to the other side and listened to the mix over there. And what I heard was that the mix, it was pretty mid-rangey. Sounded good in the simulated control room, sounded different, but still good listening to the Audio-Technica 20 headphones, which are like $30 or $40 headphones that we picked. We actually picked those for the screeners, not because of the price, although we weren't going to spend $300 a pair for screener headphones. We wanted something that kind of does what NS10s do, which is sounds kind of average. So we checked out some different headphones, and those are the ones that we picked, and the screeners seemed to like them well enough, and Tom and I like them, so we went with it. So when I listened back to my Bill Simzik style mix of this Eagle 16 track, on those it sounded pretty good. And I went, wow, there must be something to this control room simulating plugin that they've got. So, great table for studio set up in your house. We took it out of the dining room. We actually bought a bigger dining room table. Lots of times for Friday night dinners, for Shabbat dinners, we could have like 6 or 8 or 10 people over. We wanted a bigger dining room table. This table was left over from our previous home. Didn't want to sell it, so I moved it into my office, and now I look like the king of the world because I have this big-ass desk in my office. I didn't use the NX tracking device. Several people online, and somebody here in the chat said, I've got it, don't get it. So I didn't get it. So I'm using the camera to track my head movements, and it's pretty satisfying. Got to say, it works. By the way, I also have not yet. I'm one of those people that if I even read the quick start guide when I get something, that's a miracle. I'm somebody that figures stuff out on the fly oftentimes. Like I don't think I ever read the SSL manual. When I got my SSL, I just sat down and started turning knobs. If I had a question, then I might look at the manual. But I didn't open it up at page 1 and read the manual, which was this thick, before I started using it. So I didn't do the proper setup of the headphone, the control room simulator, the NX, whatever it is. You're supposed to measure the circumference of your head and I think the diameter. I haven't done that. And my wife says my head is a little bigger than average. So there you go. What's happening with my granite situation? Not even going to talk about that. My wife left the house about an hour ago in a little bit of a huff because we're having a disagreement over if we replace the backsplash or not with the granite. Michael Bruce Miller says, you got to measure your head. It makes a difference. Okay, well, that will be my project tonight. I will measure my head, my slightly larger than average head. And I only know that because my wife tells me that. And when I put on baseball hats, inevitably I have to expand the little strap thing in the back. I can't believe Kristen's asking me about the granite. That's so funny. I can tell you that replacing the granite in the backsplash is going to be somewhere around $7,000 or $8,000, and I'm just sick about that. What am I using for an audio interface? Nothing, because I'm not recording anything yet. Okay, the dead phone tracker works really well since the last... The dead phone tracker. Okay, whatever. I'm guessing you guys are talking about something else. So anyway, no kidding. And insurance doesn't cover it, even though the reason we're replacing it is not for aesthetics, but because water leaked. We have an undermount sink, which means the granite, the sink sits under the granite. And water... They don't tell you when they set you up with one of those that the chlorine in the water eventually damages the caulking, and when it does, water leaks between the granite and the substrate underneath the granite, and it causes the wood to expand, and there's a metal bar in there that gets rusty, and it caused expansion, which lifted the granite up imperceptibly, but enough to cause a hairline crack, which eventually became a crack where chunks of granite are coming out of the counter now. So there you go. Nope, can't fill it in with resin. We already had that done, just a little test area, and it lasted about 2 weeks. So there you go. No, I'm not worried about the mold. Yeah. Anyway, so we're replacing it in all the wood. Everything's coming out in new granite. We have black granite, like solid black granite on the countertops now. And we're going to replace it with like a concrete colored grayish thing. Anyway, enough about the granite. Let's talk about mixing. So I thought it might be fun today. Bust out your headphones. Turn up your speakers. Get yourself comfortable. I'm probably not going to play the entirety of the Eagles Master with all faders up because I'm going to try and avoid getting into any trouble. Formica is such a good product. No kidding. So I'm popping open my older laptop. I'm putting on my Audio Technica whatever 50 headphones, and I can't really hear can't really hear myself. Hold on, I gotta mute my camera outside is talking to me, and I don't want that. Okay, camera muted. Let's get rid of that email. Oh, look. Ouch. Got rid of the email, so no more ding-dongs. Okay. All right. So, the first thing I want to play you is the drum track. I can't really hear myself because of the way this whole audio rig is set up, so I don't get feedback. I'm not hearing my voice in here. I will hear the music in here, but I won't hear my voice. So if I'm speaking loudly or strangely, now you know why. So first thing I'm going to play you is the drum track. Oh, I'm moving my mouse for the wrong computer. So you're going to be hearing drums left and drums right. Back in 1971 with only 16 tracks, what you had to do was if you had 6, 7, 8 tracks of drums, you would pre-mix them down to a stereo pair. I've never seen anybody do what Glenn Johns did here, but I'm sure people did it with 4-track and 8-track, and I'm guessing that this was his habit, and he brought it to 16-track. It's a stereo pair with the kick, the snare, the hi-hat, the tom-toms, the overheads, everything mixed down to a stereo pair, kind of like what you might hear in a loop. Well, that gives you no control over the snare individually or the kick drum. Everything else I could live with, but I love having control over the snare and the kick drum. There is none here. But most importantly, if you listen carefully, I'm going to let this run for probably 30 seconds or more, you are going to hear that clearly he had some reverb. It sounds like a plate, like an EMT 140 plate, and for some reason it's showing up only on drums right. There's a little bit of it in there. And you'll also notice I've got the drums perfectly balanced right now. They're both set at exactly 0. And just listen carefully. Shut your eyes and listen to like where the kick is. Is the kick showing up in the middle? Is the snare showing up in the middle? It's very interesting. So here, I'm going to play a little bit of that. Okay, here we go. It's coming. It's coming. That's the bass cabinet, the bass amp leaking into the drums. hear how the snare is showing up on the right? And if you listen carefully, you hear that reverb on the right. Here, I'll bring it up a little louder. Okay, so now being an experienced engineer, at first I was thrown by that. And so then I just tried to balance out the left and the right sides of the drums so that the snare and the kick were coming out dead center instead of the snare drum being on the right and the reverb being on the right. And I did that, but I could still hear that reverb on the right. So, being an experienced mix engineer, what I did was I tried to match the reverb, which I did with the EMT plate from Abbey Road, which I don't really love that plugin. I know some people love it. I've used a lot of great plates in my lifetime, EMT 140s. I don't love that plate. But it is, a sample of the actual EMT plate at Abbey Road, so there is the nostalgia factor. So anyway, I can't remember what setting I did, but it probably took me about 20 minutes. And I know that it's like, 0.6 seconds of decay. I can't remember if I used setting A, B, C, or D, or whatever I did. I didn't do any pre-delay on it. And I got it to sound pretty even. So I had the drums panned out. And I'm not going to play you that stuff because that's on my mix. But here, I am going to try and balance the drums now, which is hard to do because the faders are sideways, and I hate that. I'm so picky. I'm such a prima donna. Okay, so notice now that the kick appears to be coming down the middle, right? I'm looking at my meters, and the left meter is much hotter because I had to bring it up by... Oops, shit, I keep touching my headphones. Shoot, sorry. Oh no, I cursed. Oh, I got Siri. Go away, Siri. This headphone connects to Siri. Okay, so the kick is down the middle, but notice the snare drum is still on the right, and so is the reverb. Frustrating, right? So I'm working on this, and I'm going, come on, Glenn Johns is like a legendary engineer. What the hell, Glenn? I think he's still alive. I should call him up and give him some grief about that. But man, oh man. Okay, so there's that. So now we're going to listen to the acoustic guitars. You'll notice one of the acoustic guitars just sounds really distorted to me. It's also labeled as an electric guitar on the tape box and also on the digital copy because the guy that did the transfer for me transferred over whatever words were on the tape box track sheet to the digital file. So maybe at some point it was an electric guitar track, and maybe they had some setting, but they left it that way for the acoustic guitar. But tell me if I'm nuts. Tell me if this acoustic guitar, and the Eagles are famous for great sounding guitars, tell me if that acoustic guitar doesn't sound distorted. Okay, so I can hear, yeah, lots of bottom end. And I made sure there's no EQ on anything, no reverb, no delay. This track is just what came off the 16 track 2-inch tape was bounced to digital. There's nothing else on it. So yeah, you can hear it. It just doesn't sound good. Okay, now I'm going to play you that one, and then I'll switch to the other one.
Don't say me.
All right, Dan Weber wins an award because he says the distortion is warm and sounds good. So, one thing that anybody who's worked on any British consoles, especially old Neves or Tridents, will tell you is that there is, oh my gosh, there's a squirrel in the backyard. Sorry, show's over, gotta go. I haven't seen a squirrel in weeks. I thought that the owl living in our tree got him. Anyway, so yeah, British consoles, especially old ones like, Neves from the late 60s to the late 70s probably, they sound, there's a harmonic distortion that happens in those consoles that actually sounds good. The transformers contribute to a lot of that. And a lot of the plugins that are out now, they do the same thing that Waves did to the control room, which is they sample it, they analyze the audio, and then they put those things, I get that, those values go into the plugins to try and simulate that distortion. So it could be that they just had a little bit more preamp cranked up on that side. I don't know, but I hear it, and whoever that was, Dan Weber, heard it too. So yeah, to me it sounds like that old either tube distortion or console distortion, probably console. Okay, now let's see, there's right side. Okay, so there's that. Let's go back to the head. And now I'm going to play you, what shall I play you next? Let's listen to the drums and the acoustics. Oh, no, you know what? I'm going to play you the bass. So there are two bass guitars on here. And at first I thought it was a direct and an amp with a mic on it. But I'm not so sure because one of them actually has a bad note. Randy Meiser was a bass player back then. And on one of the tracks, the first bass that was laid down, not the one that's marked as a double, there's actually he's playing a wrong note. He didn't misfinger something. He's just playing a wrong note. And when you hear it in the context of the track, you go, what the hell? But remember, they considered this a master. The word master was written on the box. And the fact that they overdubbed background vocals, the fact that they overdubbed the electric guitar, tells me that this was going to be the master take. But it is a little bit slower than the one that made it to radio. So my guess is they chose this take and they were gonna make this the radio version, and they started overdubbing, and at some point somebody in the band went, it just needs to be faster. It could have been Glenn Johns telling them that. I mean, the Eagles would have picked the tempo in all likelihood because they played out a lot. They're a very, hardworking live band, both with Linda Ronstadt and on their own. So I believe that the Eagles probably picked the tempo, and it's probably Glenn Johns who said, guys, if it's going to be a single, this is your best song, it should be faster. It's a little too laid back. So this ended up not being the master, but it was the master for a while until they abandoned it and moved forward. So now you're going to hear the bass. First, I'm going to play you the original bass, then I'll play you the double. Wow, I better get cranking on this. We don't have much time. Here's the original bass. No, it's not Timmy Schmidt. He wasn't in the band yet. That's both basses. There's the bad note. Okay, here's the double bass by itself. Okay, now I'm going to do bass and drums. Okay, so I think we would mostly agree. Now that's with stuff pretty close to zero. Obviously, I rebalanced the drums because we wanted them to have the kick down the middle. The acoustic guitars are set at 0. Shoot. Sorry, guys. Doesn't sound bad, right? You know, this is what I've talked about many, many times on Taxi TV, is sometimes when you listen track by track on really famous records, you go, God, I can't believe a group that famous working with a producer that famous in a world-class studio at the time. And the individual tracks just don't sound that good. But if you listen to it together, doesn't sound bad, right? Almost sounds like a record. All right, so I'm going to take it back to the top now. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. And now I'm going to play the lead vocal in solo. By the way, notice that in the lead vocal, you hear Glenn moving around and stuff, but you can hear the control room. I bet in 1971, when they made this record, that speakers that sat on the meter bridge, near field monitors, weren't a thing yet. So they were probably listening to the big monitors in the studio. This is why studios have oftentimes like concrete block walls between the control room and the studio and all kinds of insulation stuff, because if you're listening loudly in the control room, it's going to bleed out to the studio. So you can hear some of that going on here. See what I mean?
Well, I'm running down the road trying to loosen my load. I got 7 women on my mind. 4 that wanna own me, 2 that wanna stone me. 1 says she's a friend of mine. Take it easy, take it easy. Don't let the sound of your own wheels make you crazy. Lighten up while you still can. Don't even try to understand. Just find a place to make your stand and take it easy. Well, I'm a-standing on a corner in Winslow, Arizona, and such a fine sight to see. It's a girl, my lord, in a flatbed Ford, slowing down to have a look at me. Come on, baby.
Okay, so you can also hear that they probably had Glenn in a vocal booth, but they had the other guys doing the backgrounds, because that's the way we did it back then, to not burn a lot of studio time, or maybe get the eye contact, the vibe, and the harmonies. For all those reasons, you might have the background singers singing live with the lead singer when he's doing a pass. So that can create problems. Well, the record came out in 72. This was recorded in 71, I believe. But that can cause problems later. If you're punching in the vocal and you had some of that background vocal bleed into the lead vocal mic, even though they've got him in an ISO booth, it changes the sound. Would you hear it in the mix? Probably not. Okay, so there's the lead vocal. Now I'm going to play you the background vocals.
Don't say maybe. I gotta know if your sweet love's gonna see. We may lose and we may win, but we will never be here again. So
Don Henley.
up, I'm climbing in and take it easy.
Hear the control room? Lead guitar part. Oops.
Take it easy, take it easy.
Listen now. Did you hear that? You could hear Glenn put his headphones down and walk away. I love it. Anyway, so that's pretty cool. But these are all the things that we had to deal with back in my day because we didn't have an infinite track count. We had to pre-mix stuff down to bounce stereo pairs, sometimes in a mono track. Anyway, yeah. We had no Melodyne on this puppy. All right, let me go back to the top again, and I'm just going to run the background vocals. Oh, Siri, leave me alone. Going to go back to and just listen to the background vocals now. And I'll bring the lead vocal in and out. There's the control room bleed again.
Well, I'm a running down the road trying to loosen my load. I got 7 women on my mind. 4 that wanna own me, 2 that wanna stone me, 1 says she's a friend of mine. Take it easy, take it easy. Don't let the sound of your own wheels make you crazy. Lighten up while you still can. Don't even try to understand. Just find a place to make your stand and take it easy. Well, I'm a-standing on a corner in Winslow, Arizona, and such a fine sight to see. It's a girl, my lord, in a flatbed Ford, slowing down to have a look at me. Come on, baby, don't say maybe. I gotta know if your sweet love is gonna save me. We may lose and we may win, but we will never be here again. So open up, I'm climbing in to make it easy.
The solo. I'm going to leave the solo track up so you can hear some of Bernie's noodling. Bernie Ledden is the guitar player. Listen really carefully. Did you hear the print through at the end of that, witchy woman? Part of the chorus, a witchy woman. Remember I told you guys about tape bleed when you'd wrap it, especially when you wrapped it heads out. But tails out you did so that any leakage from the layer of tape before it, because the magnetic particles would sometimes energize the next layer. In this case, at some point, this lived next door to Witchy Woman on a reel of 2-inch before they moved it to the master reel. So that's that. Let's see, what else can I play for you? I've got 4 minutes left. I'm going to run it from the top and just play you ins and outs of stuff.
One, two, 1, 2, 3.
See, it almost, like, to the average person, they'd say, that sounds like a record. And everything's pretty much set at 0. I mean, I've got one of the, I had to bring up the acoustic guitar on one side to balance it with the other. Actually, no, the 2 acoustic guitars are dead center, both at 0. And I brought up the left side of the drums. Everything else you're listening to is at 0. And it sounds pretty good, right? I want to play you the end. Do I want to do that? Nah, anyway, keep going.
And such a fine sight to see. It's a girl, my lord, in a flatbed Ford, slowing down to have a look at me. Come on, baby, don't say maybe. I gotta know if your sweet love is gonna save me. We may lose and we may win, but we will never be here again. So open up, I'm climbing in. Make it easy.
No banjo.
Easy. Don't let the sound of your own wheels make you crazy. Come on, baby. Don't say maybe. I gotta know it's gonna save me. So take it easy. Make it
Listen carefully for Witchy Woman. Okay, so there you go. I'll be talking to you guys on Thursday from prison. Anyway, I'm sure that YouTube's algorithm doesn't know that this was educational. Yeah, they do have a statue on the corner of something and something in Winslow, Arizona. Yeah, the final had a banjo on it. The final also had a pair of stereo, like bell tone-ish electric guitars on it. And if I had to put my money on it, I would say that that lead was probably a Tele going through a Fender Twin. Can't be 100% certain. Certainly doesn't sound like a Gibson to me. It sounds like either a Tele, maybe a Strat, but probably a Tele. Yep, Thursday's Quarantini Happy Hour will be coming directly to you from prison. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that. You want to do 5 minutes of Q&A before we wrap it up? We can go a little bit long, I think. Yeah, Jackson Browne was writing it. The story behind the song is Jackson Browne was writing it and couldn't finish it. And then Glenn Fried, it pestered him a little bit, like, come on, let's work on it. And Jackson was already becoming famous because of Dr. My Eyes, and the Eagles were not yet famous, although they knew each other from playing the same circuit all the time in LA. And I can't remember exactly, but I think that Glenn actually wrote a substantial portion of the lyrics and brought it back. I think actually rewrote the chorus or something and then brought it back to Jackson, and Jackson said, yeah, that's fine. And the Eagles put it on their record, and I think, didn't Jackson put a version of it out on his record? Yeah, Mark Fell agrees with me. I'm so almost positive that that was a Tele. Jack Tempchin. We've had a couple people that have written Eagles songs. Jack Tempchin's an old friend of mine. He lives down around San Diego somewhere, and he wrote some of the Eagles stuff. And Barry Dvorak from Master Writer wrote In the City with Joe Walsh. Visiting hours. Yeah, I hope you guys come and visit. Anyway, so I hope you enjoyed that. You got to learn a little bit about the ins and outs of mixing on headphones, and I will keep you updated as I figure out, like any control room, any monitors, any mixing situation, there is no such thing as perfection. It just doesn't exist. I've been in many of the greatest control rooms in the United States. There's no perfection. But you get used to a thing, you get used to that control room and what the, what the near fields sound like, because we spend most of our time, I'm still doing it. Anyway, engineers spend more time on near fields. The big monitors are for getting everybody excited on a playback when you get a rhythm track or at the end of the night, But you get used to mixing on what you're working on, and that, if it sounds good right now on these, it's probably going to be bass light if I take it out of here. So they may bring up the bass a little louder than sounds right on those monitors. You just learn how to roll with it and tweak it. So that's what I'm attempting to do using the Waves NX whatever software that emulates Ocean Way Nashville. So you enjoyed the backgrounds, huh? Yep. Man, that's right. It was built by man. All right, you guys. So that's it. I will see you back here on Thursday. If you are new to Taxi's Quarantini Happy Hour, which I want to mention, the Quarantini Happy Hour is generally more banter and hanging out than it is educational. I've been getting some people posting stuff in the comments saying, can't believe how much you're like talking to these guys in the chat room. You need to just get to the point. But every time they say that, they're watching the Quarantini Happy Hours. So they don't yet understand the difference between the regular Monday shows and the happy hours. Anyway, glad that you were able to watch this. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. If you haven't given us a like yet, please do. I will see you guys on Thursday right back here, 4 o'clock, for some more, probably not this exciting, Taxi Quarantini Happy Hour. Bye, you guys. Oops. Wrong one. There we go.